Welcome to Baseball Biz. I'm Mark Carpenter, your host, and with me today is Mr. RaysUp himself, Matt Germain. And Matt constantly gives us the insight of what's happening with the team and with the Rays and with baseball overall. Welcome, Matt. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. Holding up well after the fires up here in Canada, and I think we've got enough rain now that we have things on hold in my area anyway. So things are looking up.
I'm glad to hear that. I know you've been sharing on Twitter some of the a view of some of the disasters up there, quite honestly. And it's numbing. It's mind numbing. I'm glad to hear it sounds like there's going to be some respite up there. The magnitude of that just blew my mind when I saw the images that you posted on Twitter for the fires, and it was just, completely mind blowing. And the devastation that's occurred from that and the fallout from the ash and smoke in the sky, I can't begin to think of how that's even going to be measured over time.
Yeah, and it hits home, especially like we knew people in certain areas that had to clear out and some of them that lost their homes. And it's when your kids come to you and start putting away or packing up their favorite things because they know that we might have to evacuate the house. That's when it really sets in.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a joke anymore. It's for real out of it in good working order by the time they're done. Some people never emotionally get over that scar. Hopefully the help that they're getting from everybody around them, hopefully that's a good reminder that there's a lot of good coming up.
I'm glad to hear that there's, as far as the actions from others, helping one another. And taking about helping one another in a less serious manner, but one we enjoy nonetheless is in baseball, is watching what the Rays have been doing for one another here in the last week. Matt and I have got to say, I am completely stupefied. Wow. I had the good fortune to go up to Fenway this week and watch a few games with the Rays, and I was really curious to see how things were going to play out. I'd hoped to see Chris Sale while I was up there, but he's injured. And got to see Taj Bradley pitch in Glasnow, and I remotely watched McClanahan. And man, we took 3 out of 4. Exciting.
Yeah. The interesting thing is when you're cheering for the Rays, you know that sometimes a cold climate isn't when you're going to see the best of the Rays. And that's exactly what we had. We had cold and rain on top of it. So it wasn't really like the guys were in their element. They're dome guys. They're warm weather guys. They're not really, the kind that you imagine in your mind when you say, okay, that's a rough and tumble cold weather team. And normally those come out of Chicago or New York or people that are in an outdoor stadium in the coldest months. So it was great to see the guys show up. Like, I know the bats didn't really explode per se. They had some home runs stolen from them, which hurt the bottom line. But overall, they all performed well, and especially the pitching. I think you can attest to that. When you start dreaming about, a playoff run and having a good, strong foursome that you're looking at now with Eflin, Glasnow, McClanahan, and Bradley, I don't think, especially with DeGrom going on Tommy John, I don't think there's any teams out there that can measure up. Maybe the Mariners, if they get into the playoffs, they have a strong 4, but there aren't many others out there in the American League anyway that I would match up with the Rays.
And when we talk about the pitching in the Rays, and you mentioned McClanahan, and you said DeGrom, because I was looking at him like last year, I thought of both of those guys as being the premier pitchers across all of baseball, both of them. And I don't have the ERA in front of me right now, but both of them were just lights out. And McClanahan has maintained that. Watching him, I was at Fenway this weekend, and by the way, it was cold, brother. It was raining. I got underneath the grandstand, my wife and I, but it was wet. It was cold. The wind was whipping through there. See, wind chill of 44 degrees, folks, in June. What's that about? But it was, I said, yeah, we're not going to see Pete Fairbanks out there, even if he's healthy, because that's cold. Nobody could hardly hold that ball, but they did a great job with it. And I want to say a global statement here. And watching the Rays play in that element, you really got a sense of them as a team, how they supported one another. You may have seen some of the stories about like when Margot was out in center field and was running for this ball, and I can't remember if it's Verdugo, whoever hit it, Margot ran all the way out, bang, up against the scoreboard, fell to the ground, and the teammates were there immediately around him. Josh was helping him up after a couple of minutes and helped brushing him off, and some of the other players. And you get this sense of togetherness with them. One other thing I'll say is a comparison to the Red Sox, Matt, and that is I heard they had a team meeting the other day, and that tells me there's a team that's not gelling. If you have a team meeting, a team must not be gelling, but the Rays are, I feel like, above and beyond all of that.
When was the Rays had a moment a few years ago when they had a team meeting, or was it last year? It might have even been last year. And it was because of the slide that they were going through. And I'm not sure if it was one with the coaches in or just the players. I don't think it was just the players. But the teams, you can have it happen in teams that are very cohesive, but usually it's because details are not being paid attention to, and it's driving people nuts, whether that be the players or whether that be the coaches or managers, right? So usually that's why, and they want to focus people in and get back on track, because in a room with that many guys, it's hard to keep them all focused. It's like herding cats, right? Like there's usually a couple of stray ones that are going through things or busy thinking about other things, and mistakes end up being made. So I get the whole team meeting thing. But it's interesting when you look at the Red Sox, I want to say that they are a very dangerous team. They need that one extra starter. So if they were to go and get Lucas Giolito or Dylan Cease from the White Sox, I would put them ahead of the Yankees and Blue Jays in terms of teams I do not want to play in the playoffs, because they're getting Trevor Story back. They're getting Mr. Adam Duval back, who was always clutch and producing it. And then you saw the plays that Kike's making. All of a sudden, you put those elements in with Yoshida and the bat that he's got and Devers, then they become dangerous. They've already got Kenley Jansen and the rest of them. What I saw in this series was the potential, especially with Bello. I love Bello, but the potential of the Red Sox is real. And I think they're more of a threat than people give them credit for. If Marcelo Meyer can come in next year and make them a real contender, like for a World Series run or a deeper playoff run, whatever you want to call going for it. But I could see them being that. Whereas I don't see it with the Jays. I see the Jays as a hair away from tanking. I see the Yankees, the rotation falling apart in a way, and the depth just not being there to hold it. So they're going to have to make moves as well. But even then, when you look at their AAA and AA teams, they're extremely weak. So what I would say is the Red Sox showed me this through the Rays series, that they're close and they're dealing with injuries. They're not paying attention to details. And that's what's driving them nuts, is that they're so close, but they just can't push over that hump to get through and win more of those games. And I'll finish off with this, like against non-Rays teams, the Red Sox are 29-23. And that's not too bad.
No,
right?
not at all. Not at all. Yeah. 29-23. I think that would be great. So if they just take, what is it? Is it they're 1-7 with the Rays?
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez, Pete. Hey, you mentioned the Blue Jays, and I'm thinking, good Lord, what's happened to Manoah, Alek Manoah? The man has resulted to blowing on balls going down the foul line because his game seems to be so short on his pitching. I don't know what to expect else from. I'm looking at the Blue Jays.
So Alek Manoah is an interesting thing, and I lived through the whole Roy Halladay thing with the Jays, and back then I covered the Jays, and so I saw him go through that entire ordeal, and it made him so much stronger. But he had the state of mind as a very calm, intrinsic person to go through that, take his lumps, and come out of it on top. When I see Alek Manoah, I'm not sure he's exactly there. He might get there. He might mature some through this process. But when I saw him on the bench, he was shooing people away. He was trying to fight through it on his own and not really, he wasn't in sync with the coaches and the manager and everything else. So I don't know how he's going to react to this demotion. But I do think that the Blue Jays, now that they've ripped off the Band-Aid and said, okay, we're gonna go through whatever we need to get you right, that is the right step. It should come with an MRI, because you don't know if something is going on. And you can believe the pitcher if you want, but chances are somebody that's stubborn and that wanting to be the leader guy that goes on and performs, there's a chance he's hiding something as well. And so just to clear it up and to know where we stand physically, after you pushed him 90 innings higher than ever before the year prior, then take a look, see what's going on, make sure there's nothing wrong. And if not, then rebuild the techniques and go from there. But he could come back, but it doesn't take long. Let's say 6 weeks, 7 weeks. I can't remember how long Roy was down for. I think it might have been a month and a half. But in that amount of time, you can refine somebody's mechanics, get them believing in themselves again. And then they have plenty of time to still earn a playoff spot if he comes back strong.
It's going to be interesting, like you were saying, with the Red Sox, if they get Trevor Story back, if they get Duval back, and they got Christian Arroyo back just the other day. So they've got some things there. I can tell you when I was at Fenway, I did hear Fenway saying, I don't like Duran and I don't want him here. It's like they're very honest about how they feel about their team and the different players. Some were criticizing Kiki. He has no business being at shortstop. He's looking pretty good out there as an outfielder.
He didn't ask to be a shortstop. He's forced into it, right?
Yeah. He just got slopped in there. But again, looking at his Rays series, I think it was yesterday, Monday, that both he and Verdugo stole 2 home runs from the Rays. And it was interesting. The same talent that it took to steal those home runs that were just about ready to creep out of the field, there were players who looked like the Keystone Cops when Yonde hit a ball the other day and had what a lot of them refer to as a little league home run, because the ball was being passed back and forth, thrown into home to try to get rid of one of his RBS. Oh my gosh, now it's going to be thrown back to second, the shortstop. Oh my gosh. And the next thing you know, he's made it from that initial hit that should have maybe got him a double at best to a home run, as everybody's going skittering looking for that ball. It was sad watching a Major League Baseball team play that little game of hide the ball.
There's certain teams that you hear about. You'll hear who the coaches are that are working on defense with the players and refining all those finer points. You would hope at the major league level, you don't have to go through every single kind of scenario. But I think when you look at the Braves and Ron Washington as an example, right, he'll go through everything 100 times over and over again with all the players to improve their defense so that it becomes a natural movement. And I think the Rays, for whatever reason, have that ability as well. And I don't know who does that coaching for the Rays specifically, but they all seem to have those natural throws that last year they were a bit rushed. Walls and a couple of others seem to be trying to force the issue. This year is a little bit more smooth. So the Red Sox need that kind of guy, that Ron Washington kind of guy that'll go in there and reset the team defensively. Now, if you put Trevor Story at shortstop, honestly, you should be fine. There's no real pressing issue. Devers is fine at third. So then it just becomes about second base. And I think if Kike's playing second, he's a strong second baseman, but I'd rather, for the Red Sox, have him in center field. So, yeah, that's why I think Marcelo Meyer is going to be such a big game changer for them, because you put him in at shortstop, you move Story to second, all of a sudden Marcelo Meyer is the same as what in the Rays system would be Carson Williams. Like that defense ability is elite. It's Taylor Walls-ish, close. So That's why I say the Red Sox are only going to get stronger because their infield D is going to elevate. It's not hard to plug in the guys in the corners of the outfield, and they have Verdugo and Yoshida. So then you're just talking about center field and catching position. And I know they can sort that out. So that's why I'm saying that personally, I'm more confident that the Red Sox will continue being a threat to the Rays going forward.
The Orioles have been amazing, and they prove, I believe, when you're looking at a lot of the players, they're young. You're looking, I think, in some ways at a Rays equation of bringing up young, talented players. And that seems to be their strength and seems to be working for them this year.
Yeah, the one, like, I was asked today about comparing the Reds and what they're bringing up, because they're bringing up Ellie De La Cruz. Oh my God, that guy is just insane elite. And then the difference between the Reds and the Orioles is the Reds have more depth in pitching and elite pitching that is coming up. And that's going to set them apart from the Orioles. The Orioles still need to make investments in pitching. I don't know who that's going to be. I don't know when it's going to be. I know they have ownership and rights issues and a whole bunch of things. But they don't have, and then we saw with Grayson Rodriguez, who was putting a bunch of pressure on himself. Like, there's no guaranteed guys in their system. They don't have the top tier guys you would want in the playoffs on their team. So they essentially need three guys. They need three guys to elevate their pitching to become a Rays-esque for this year or World Series contender in previous years. So when you saw the Phillies make their run, what led them all the way there? It was their three top pitchers. They led them all the way through. They were consistent, bang, win all the way through. And if you have a Zach Wheeler kind of guy with the Orioles, they become very dangerous at that point.
Looking across all of baseball right now, the Rays as a team are the most dangerous out there. We all saw the strength they had early on. Heck, they were hitting 800. They were winning at 800% early on, down to 700, and I think they're down to whatever. Let's see, 694, just under 700. But what does that equate to? That equates to 43 wins and 19 losses. At home, they're 26-6. Away, they're 17-13, and they've just been marvelous. There's really nobody that can catch up, it seems. But obviously they can't because it's way too early in the year. But the next highest team up, I think, has 35 wins. If you're looking at, in National League, there's nobody that has more than 35 wins. American League, yes, the Orioles are there with 37, Yankees with 36. So those three teams, as far as total number of wins, seem to be above all of the other three divisions in the American League. The National League, pardon me, getting a little twisted here. It's this 43-19. My gosh, Matt, you and I both said, yeah, they're gonna have good times, they're gonna have bad times, but we've done pretty well thus far. And see who we're facing upcoming right now. We got facing the Twins and then the Rangers.
Yep, and then we have the A's after that, and a couple of other series. The Rays have one of the easiest schedules from here on out, like from here to the end of the season. They do have a rough September, but they have a lot of days off. They have some time to breathe. July, I think they have 7 days off in July. So they're going to get a chance to heal, which is good because they've been using a lot of the same guys over and over again. They still have a couple more coming back from injury in the minors that could help them out eventually. And they have guys like Andrew Kittredge and a couple of other ones that would work well into the pen. But I think the key for the Rays from here on out is to keep everybody healthy. Listen to the guys, force them to be honest about how their bodies are feeling and trying to get them the rest they need so they can be as in best of shape as possible at the end of the year. And I've not been shy about doing that. Tip of the hat to them for doing that.
I want to ask you about something else entirely different. Quebec. Are we looking at a Major League Baseball team going to be coming to Quebec anytime soon?
I don't know. And I say this as somebody that's very well in on that file. When everything fell through with the sister city concept, and I know these people, I don't want to call them actors, but they have an agenda that they're trying to push through. Here's what I know. The ownership group there has invested money in getting MLB the right information to have a franchise. So they've gone through all the process. They've gotten the designs done for the stadium. They've gotten all the canvassing of information from the population, from all three levels of government, what they'd be able to give them, how the parking and everything else, the size of the stadium, everything is, all the checks in the boxes are there. And I think that's what the sister city concept was about. I don't for one second believe they were ever going to go through with it. I think it was about getting Montreal vetted as a potential MLB city. How MLB feels about that after the fact, I have no idea. What I can tell you is that the levels of government there are very supportive of giving money to have a team come back to Montreal. They're okay with that. It's way more than most cities would be. They've done it for the arena. They built an NHL arena with nothing but taxpayer money and Quebecor money. And there's not even an NHL team to go in there. And they were still willing to do it just so that it would eventually attract an NHL team. So I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about is when you ask Stephen Bronfman and his group, are you willing to spend $4 billion on a Major League Baseball franchise? The answer is heck no. In no way, shape, or form are they going to go there. Now, is there a route to get there? Absolutely. Can they get zero interest loans from MLB? This, that, the other thing, naming rights, paying towards it because it's payments, right? You're just making the payments. There's ways to contort things so that it's less out of pocket. But I say this because to me, them moving the A's to Montreal, that makes sense because they can buy the A's for $1 billion, the same as what the Royals were sold for. And then they have everything already built, the scouting department, the affiliates, the whole machinery of the team is already there. They don't have to start everything from scratch, which is all a cost. If they go for a franchise for a new and they're betting against others, first of all, the bidding is going to drive that cost up for the franchise, probably towards the $2.5 to $3 billion. And then you still have to pay for the stadium and you still have to build all those affiliate relations and scouting departments and everything else from scratch. I don't see that happening in Montreal at all, like ever. So either they move a team there, whatever team that ends up being, and who knows, like it's not just the A's. There are other teams that are having certain issues. So my feeling is that we'll see a team in Vegas, we'll see a team in Utah or Portland, one or the other, and we'll see a team in either Charlotte or Nashville. And my hunch is the other avenue that I've worked out that is a possibility if they did do the expansion route would be if they did a sister city concept with Nashville. But I think it would be just as unpopular with Nashville as it was with Rays fans. They either want a full team or they don't. So that's the one way I could see the Montreal ownership group being, okay, we can do the sister city concept like we said before, but with an expansion team where they don't know any better, where they're just happy to get half a team. You know what I mean? And then maybe that's more easily taken in.
Yeah, I could see that with Nashville, that might be a bit more acceptable, like just because what you're saying, they don't have anything to base it on. Oh, yeah, to have any team at all might be just perfect for them. It was interesting, though, when you were talking about Las Vegas, because I was looking at some news just in the last couple of days, and it sounded like some of the sessions had passed from the government and were closing down without any commitment of dollars to bring a team to Vegas. There was nobody saying, okay, let's go ahead and build a fund with taxes to put up a new stadium. And it was kind of like that was not part of any conversation from what I was able to see in Nevada. And so the A's may really be struggling to find a place.
I guarantee you that if Fisher says tomorrow, I will sell to an ownership group in Vegas, it would happen like that. But because he's an outsider going in and begging for money, it's a completely different ball game. And I still think that, Major League Baseball needs to stop this nonsense of just begging for public funds to build new stadiums. It's unseemly. Like you didn't see certain wealthy ownership groups asking for money. Like the Dallas Cowboys did not ask for money. They built their stadium, and what do they get? 9 games a year, or maybe 10 with the preseason. Like, and they still got it built. Grow up, build your own stadiums, and go where you want to go instead of begging and pleading and making this whole like tantrum, like a kid basically saying, "I'm taking my ball and I'm going home because you're not giving me what I want." It's a little bit infantile, and I think MLB would benefit in so many ways by having a team in Vegas, just like hockey has. The Vegas Knights are about to win a Stanley Cup, possibly, and the NHL is all over the TV, and they're growing, and their revenues are higher than ever before. And there's no, aside from the Coyotes, which have been a debacle in terms of arenas for ages, that team should go to Quebec City, if anything. But I think it's about time that MLB moves on with these things and helps those teams establish themselves or find new ownership and force them out like they did in LA with the Dodgers, and Frank McCourt had to sell the team basically because things were just getting out of hand. And that's where it's getting right now with the A's and the Rays, to be frank. Like the Rays need to, I know they still have a timeline, right? They still have the time until the Trop lease ends, but it's now. Like this is the year they need to announce what they're going to do.
Man, I'll tell you, sometimes I work down at the Tampa Baseball Museum. And time again, I probably said it here before, is one of the few questions I get over and over is, have you guys got a stadium yet? Or are they Rays staying here? And I just still put my hands up and say, I don't know, because there's just too much going on with this back and forth. And then there's that also a little noise coming over from Orlando about wanting to get a Major League Baseball team. So Florida is going to get cramped with a lot or nothing. I'm not sure which is going to be here in a few years, but we will see.
That's right. I think the important thing is that things seem to be positive right now overall. Options are plenty. As long as you hear there's always a lot of options, usually that means that something can get worked out. When it starts getting to be that rhetoric of either or, like this or this, and then we're out, like happening with the A's, then you're in a world of hurt.
We'll see what they can pull together, brother, because it's been interesting. Again, when I was at Fenway, people come up and say, "You got the Trop." He said, it's terrible there, isn't it? I said, "I'm sorry. There are no rainouts." We're sitting here in 44-degree weather, wet, and I would be at home in 72-degree weather with no rain on me, enjoying a game. Yes, I'm sorry. The Trop's terrible. I love it.
Every stadium should have an umbrella.
I agree with you. Yeah, I'll buy a ticket in the grandstand at Fenway before I get up any closer with the weather they had. But it was a lot of fun. We had a great time there, wife and I, when we went, and got to go up and climb up the monster. We went on a tour. And the excitement, I haven't been to, I guess it's been a while since I've been to another Major League Baseball field. And I think Fenway was a good one to start with, a place that has a lot of history, a lot of excitement. The fans are fantastic. I was a little concerned, should I wear my Rays gear here? But everybody was pretty well accepting. I ran into a couple of Yankees fans there that they were incognito. They were wearing their children's gear. They had a little league day there. They were wearing their kids' hats and jerseys. But it's if you've never gone there, man, maybe you had. I forgot if you've been there, Matt, or not. But it is something. It is really exciting.
I've been to a few dozen games in Fenway, and I've loved every single minute of it. I think first of all, the food and drinks are at a good price. They're not gouging like they are at Yankee Stadium and other places. Like you said, the fans are very knowledgeable and respectful. As long as you're respectful to them, you might get the stray guy here or there yell something, an obscenity or whatever, but it's not anything serious. And most times he gets hushed out by the other fans. I really love the on top of the game feeling you have at Fenway.
Yeah.
And how you hear all the oohs and the ahs, and the people are into the game. They're watching the game. They're talking, yes, but they're also involved in the game. And so the passion there for baseball is real. You feel it for sure.
I had a great respect for the fans there. One, because what you're saying about how they behave, but mostly because that they're willing to stay in that weather and watch their team all the way through it. And the passion in which how they either cheer on or jeer on their players for their performance. But it's exciting. And I can't wait to get out to a few more, man. You got any baseball parks that you want to get to that are on your list?
Yeah, Wrigley is one for sure. And I know they've modernized it now a little bit, so I'm sad that I didn't see it prior to that. That's one that I definitely want to get to. And I also want to go to Petco. I haven't been out there, and I'm going probably within the next 2 years to do a whole Vegas, Grand Canyon, San Diego sort of trip.
Good things, brother. Good things. Hey, right now it is Tuesday while Matt here and I are talking, and it's 7:04 Eastern time. Looking at the bottom of the second, when the Rays are back home and they're playing the Twins, and it is zip to zip, one out. So we will see how this goes. Got great expectations for them this week while they're back, but great times, my friend.
Yes, it is. And in the minors games, you also have some interesting arms throwing today. Evan McKendry won the pitcher of the month for the minors, and he's pitching tonight for Durham. And he's become a really intriguing depth piece with so many of the Rays guys struggling. I know Cooper Criswell is probably going to get the start tomorrow, but him and Chirinos have failed to grab on to that fifth spot. If McKendry can continue doing what he's doing and building on that, he could be a threat to take that role. And Patino's now in the pen, so you need that extra piece aside from Bradley that'll come up and give them depth if needed. So it'll be interesting to see if they add him to the 40-man in the next few months.
The one thing that I look at with this, Matt, is that farm system. We've talked about this before. I hate to see Willie go. I hate to see some of these other people's go. But the best thing is the Rays are continually working with new talent. To see Taylor Walls come up, Franco, obviously, and some of these other folks. It's just amazing. And then I'm looking at what do we do when poor old Brandon Lau, he's having back trouble right now. What happens? We even brought up Vidal Brujan for a game or so.
The Rays have depth so much to spare that there's so many guys you want to see from the minors because you're hoping for that Josh Lowe or Luke Raley sort of performance when they come up and have a huge impact. But the reality is everybody has growing pains. And Vidal Brujan's a guy that I've wanted to see after he's gotten all the seasoning. Can he be more consistent, especially at the plate? Because if he can be, he's a real player. He's the perfect utility player for a team. He can move all over the place and give you quality everywhere he goes. I'm glad that he's getting an opportunity to show what he can do again.
Well, man, I tell you what, man, I think that's about all I got. Is there anything in particular you wanted to cover above and beyond what we have thus far?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, brother. Man, Matt, it's always a joy talking with you, brother. And I tell you what, it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the season continues. And like I said, I'm still dumbfounded. I'm stupefied that to see the greatest performance I've seen with these Rays. And Cash has done a great job of maneuvering the team and players, whether it be days off or quickly responding when somebody has an injury. And I don't know. I have a great deal of respect for what he's done with that team and the coaches as well.
What are you predicting for a win total based on, we've seen 62 games now. We have 100 to go. What are you predicting for a win total?
Oh, geez, brother. I would have said 110. I'm going to say 102. 102. What about you?
107.
Ooh, I like yours better.
It's a win the division number for sure. But yeah, I feel like when I look at the next 100, I think they can take 64 of them is essentially where I'm going. So I haven't looked at the schedule and the strength of it. I think it'll be somewhere between 101 and 107. It'll be a franchise record either way. hopefully they continue on like that.
All right. I'm looking forward to that number. I'm looking forward to watching these guys go all the way to postseason and take the World Series.
Come on. As soon as the next, I know they're going to make a big trade between now and the trade deadline. So when it happens, whenever you want to get me on, we'll talk about it.
All right, brother. Thanks again, Matt. It's always fun having you here on Baseball Biz on Deck. And brother, again, where can they find you on Twitter?
It's at MAT_GERMAIN_.
Yeah, and guys, I got to tell you, if you want to keep up with the Rays, not just up the minor system, Matt does a great job of that. I get so much more insight from all the details he's able to share about the different players and what they're achieving, and some great insight on what to expect for the future with the Rays. So thanks again for joining us here on Baseball Biz on Deck, and we look forward to talking with you guys again real soon. Special thanks to X-Take RUX for the music rocking forward.